Welcome to the 5th episode of MIM Matters podcast, where I am your host, Rebecca Bridgen, taking a moment to explore marketing concepts with some of Maritime's finest marketeers. So what does it really mean to do marketing with purpose, not just activity for activity's sake? In an industry full of events, content and noise, how do we make sure what we create actually gets the desired result? That builds trust, advances collaboration, and helps the maritime community solve real problems together. So I'm joined today by the wonderful Cathy Hodge, co-founder of Smart Maritime Network, which runs global conferences and convenes the Smart Maritime Council. SMN's work has produced tangible assets like the standardized vessel dataset for noon and emissions reporting, and best practice guidelines on data ownership, all aimed at turning digital collaboration from theory into reality in shipping. So Cathy's been kind enough to take time out of a very packed schedule, actually, to share how she's built a purpose-driven brand and a genuine community in maritime. So grab a coffee and let's welcome Cathy. So Cathy, welcome. It's great to take a moment with you today.
Hi, Rebecca, and thanks so much for having me on today. It's fab to see you again.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely our pleasure. I mean, I always enjoy our interactions anyway. So I guess we'll just get straight into it. We've only got a short time to impart some fantastic knowledge for the marketing community. So purpose in practice, when we say marketing with purpose, or when you say marketing with purpose in maritime, what concrete behaviours should we see from event design to content, partnerships, and community engagement?
Okay, big questions there. I think I need to preface all of this with the fact that I am actually, and sorry, Mim, I am actually not a real marketer. Obviously,
we all say that.
I just need to get that out there because I don't want anybody to watch this and go, is she really in marketing? But obviously what we do with SMN is all about marketing, and we work with a lot of marketers. And so back to your question, what do we mean by marketing with purpose? And I think the real thing around for me is that everything has to have an intention and not just be noise, which is very much where SMN actually was born out of, really, and I'm sure we'll get to that a bit later in the conversation. So what that looks like to me is really events that encourage collaboration, events that have tangible events, and any form of workshop, etc., that has tangible outcomes, and it isn't just a look at me exercise or a tick box exercise or a shoving a logo on a screen exercise. There needs to be something that is a deliverable at the end and something that matters to people. So marketing with purpose is really, I mean, another way to put it, I think, would simply be marketing that matters.
Which is great because obviously this is MIM Matters. And
wow, look what we did there.
Yeah, look what we did. So you did start to talk about SMN, and what problem did SMN set out to solve then that conventional trade media events just weren't solving?
Yeah, so we launched SMN in 2019 because we really recognised there was quite a big gap between traditional media at the time and industry collaboration, measurable collaboration. So our goal was to create something which had collaboration at its heart, essentially. There was a lot of very transactional media around at the time. There were a lot of very transactional events around at the time. And there is a place for everything. This industry is big. But what we felt was missing, and in fact we heard this from a lot of people, a lot of our community at the time, was that there was nothing that was driving real industry collaboration and conversation in our space. Certainly there perhaps were in other spaces, but in the maritime technology space, that just really wasn't there at the time. So that was what really sparked the initial idea. And we recognised that the industry didn't really need just another news outlet. That was at the time not necessary. Where we were working at the time was performing that that role itself very well. But what it needed was a space where industry could meet with intention, back to use the phrase from the beginning of this discussion, where they could collaborate in a safe space, where competitors could share ideas with each other without any repercussions. So whilst we don't operate strictly under Chatham House rules, that is something that on the membership side we do adhere to, in that we encourage everyone to be very open with what they're sharing, on the understanding that nobody will share things externally without full permission. So yeah, that was really the intention behind SMN, was to create a safe space for industry collaboration. And back again to your former comment and to our what I mentioned earlier, where there were actually meaningful outputs. It wasn't just conversation for conversation's sake.
Yeah, and I think we can all attest that there's a lot of those sometimes in industry, isn't there? And actually, we want to see real change when conversations happen. But I mean, I know that I learned in the first year of setting up my business. You learned some amazing lessons in the first year. So I'm going to ask you, what did you learn from the first year versus what you know now?
Everything. Everything. I mean, there are many layers to that. Obviously, the first layer is the simple one of launching our own startup and being business owners. That was a massive learning curve for us. I'm sure you went through the same. Just everything from finances and accounting and websites and all of that. Very, very much out of my comfort zone. I have a great business partner, Rob, who you know, and many people watching this will know as well. Really, I think the first thing we learned was to play to each other's strengths. And to, whilst yes, there was a simple case of sometimes you just have to suck it and get on with it. And even if you're not comfortable doing it, you just have to, fake it till you make it. That was probably lesson number one. Fake it till you make it. I feel like I still am, but we're still here, so we must be faking it quite well. So yeah, I think first of all was on the business side, very new. Industry, that was, what else have I learned from first year to year 5? What you think people want isn't actually always what they want. And I think that was a big learning curve as well, big lesson learned. And actually the simple way to deal with that is to ask lots of questions. And I think that's, I know you're very good at that as well. That's what you ask lots of questions all the time. You're asking me questions now. And every time we meet, you ask lots of questions. And I think that's something that this industry needs people to do more of. There's an awful lot of talking about what I do, what we do. Here you go, here's our product, buy it, use it. And I think that was a very big lesson, to ask what people want before necessarily creating it, the final version. Because just as I said, I think that what the industry sometimes wants is not what you sometimes think.
Yeah, and do you know, the asking questions really resonates with me, because I think there can often be a misconception that if you ask a question, it makes you look unknowledgeable. And you don't want to give that impression because you're trying to build XYZ. But actually, the fool in the room is you if you don't ask the question, because you're never going to grow, you're never going to learn. And you have to be humble during those moments and learn from those more
But I think people like being asked questions. I certainly find, it's one of the tenets of our events that we always ensure that there is a lot of time and space for interaction between audience and speakers, between the audience themselves. It's why we have things like our round tables during the event, again to mimic the SMM kind of ethos anyway, which is to encourage discussion and collaboration. So we're very much not in that stand up on a stage, death by PowerPoint type event. You will very rarely, there will always be a couple of presentations at our events, but on the whole, because sometimes the keynote's very important to those as scene setters context drivers. But also what you would find predominantly at our events are panel discussions, which are super interactive, round tables, super interactive, and workshops, super interactive, because that's where we feel the magic really happens at events.
Yeah, I love the mixture. I mean, I'm coming from a teaching perspective. I used to be a teacher many moons ago, and so I very much So
teacher,
I've got lots of secrets.
A
women, many.
What else? What else is going to come out?
Done many things. They all rolled up to make who I am today. But one of the key things that I learned when I was doing my PGCE was basically how to keep a classroom full of individual students engaged and also expanding and drawing from their own understanding. And it was all very much activity based, rather than standing and lecturing, which I'm sure we've all fallen asleep to at times. So no, I like that very much. But many maritime brands still lead with features. What's a better problem statement for 2025, 2026? Actually, we might even be aired in 2026, this episode, who knows? I mean, for example, interoperability, I can never say that word, data portability, compliance and emissions. And how do you position around
all
it?
of those matter. Those are all key topics right now. But I think, if this is answering the question properly, I think something that people, and a lot of people have moved away from this, is to not talk about a product so much, but to talk about why it matters. And I think that's been, that's I think a big differentiator between what makes good marketing. If you're able to talk and explain why your product, your service, your solution, your event, why it matters, rather than just what it does. I mean, for example, with our events, we don't just talk about, we're running a conference about maritime digitalization. What we rather talk about is we're doing something that helps the industry remove friction. So, and again, I think that when you see people and you see marketing that helps people understand helps people recognize that this might help them. That's what really matters, I think, these days. So I think positioning today needs to be around problem statements and not product descriptions, basically.
Yeah, empathizing with the pain points and why you are there, why you exist
for every
to help
single
remove
product out
that
there,
pain
and I
effectively.
include events in this, there are multiple choices. So if you want to differentiate, you have to, exactly as I just said, you have to address problem statements, not just be describing a product.
Yeah, I agree. So a practical litmus test. If a campaign can't be tied to community outcomes, because sometimes it can't, i.e. working group deliverables, standards, milestone, etc. Should it exist?
I think not everything can be tied to an output. I mean, events can. That's easy because there are very obvious metrics that one can use for an event, but not every campaign can have a working output necessarily, because there is still a place, very much so, for building awareness. But I think I think the key words here, it has to build literacy and not just create more noise. So, I mean, there are obviously many ways to interpret that, but I think as a marketer, just step back and think, is this actually benefiting anybody, or is it just more noise out there? I mean, LinkedIn is a prime place for that. There's a lot of noise. There's an awful lot of noise. So we all have. I have.
I'm sure I've contributed to a lot of that as well.
And sometimes we all fall into that trap of thinking it's numbers. The more you put out, the more you get back. And I'm not saying that isn't true. Well, I am. I'm saying that isn't true. But there's a balance. I think you have to be visible, and visibility matters. profile matters, because the more profile you have, the more awareness people will have of you, and the more, and sort of, I think with LinkedIn as well, that's a whole different kettle of fish, because you've got to talk about the LinkedIn algorithm and what it's showing people. But yeah, again, you just have to think: does this matter to anybody? Does this campaign